All right, we're about to dive into the 2024 Google Ads strategy for lead gen campaigns. And this is exactly what we use to deliver highly profitable results fast for our clients. Quick disclaimer before we begin, there is no single one right way to build a Google Ads campaign. I'm simply sharing what has worked for us and our 40 plus clients who are primarily in the home services / home improvement sectors. And it has worked really, really well for both higher and lower spend accounts. So most of our clients aren't massive spenders. They could be in the region of £5,000 to £10,000 or dollars, some up to 20,000, just to give you some perspective and context for what I'm about to show you. So just some examples of some of the results that we've been able to achieve for our clients. And this is all using the strategy that I'm about to share with you. So you can see primarily home improvement, but we do other stuff as well, such as legal, and really just gives you an idea of what we're able to achieve. And it works across all these different industries that we've got experience in. So if you have clients in similar sectors to these, you can be confident that this will likely work. While there's no guarantees, this should provide you at least with a framework that you can take and implement, or give you some ideas moving forward to take into your own campaigns. Hey, real quick one. You know I keep in-video promotion to an absolute minimum, but I'm confident this will be something you may be interested in. We're teaming up with Ed Leak, a top recognized Google Ads expert, to launch a community specifically for lead gen agency owners and PPC practitioners. So if you like the content I share on YouTube, there'll be a whole lot more trainings that share the inner workings of how we manage our client campaigns. We'll also be hosting live weekly calls for both Google Ads and landing pages, where you can come along to the call and share any campaign challenges you have, and we'll personally help you figure out a game plan. So if you're curious and want to know more, there's a link in the description. Let's get back to the video. And before I begin, I want to share a few simple traits that I feel great Google Ads managers have. And it's really the most important one that I've kind of come across is using common sense and thinking logically. This is massively important. The second one is understanding how to diagnose and solve problems. And lastly, the third one is having that experience in many different situations. Because if you're new to Google Ads, you might not know what to do in a certain situation if you're not getting clicks or if you're getting the wrong type of traffic. It's just having that experience and reps in all these different scenarios, which really builds your knowledge base and gives you the tools to be able to access when you're stuck in certain situations in a campaign. And I just want to share also, a Google Ads strategy has differed now compared to what it was a few years ago. Whereas back in the day, we'd be using a lot of different SCAG-based account builds, but now it's much more based around keyword themes and breaking campaigns or different ad groups up by intent. The match types now are very much leaning into broad match keywords, but potentially having, I guess, more phrase match as well. But whereas before you'd use broad match modified, maybe lean heavily into exact match. Bidding strategy used to be wanting that control using manual CPC, and now it's really, as you know, what we're trying to do now is really move it over to automated bidding strategies as soon as we can. And with the ad optimization, before you'd run different ads against each other, and now it's more about testing different angles of the offer in the copy. And then in terms of the account optimization, before we'd always lean so heavily into optimizing for quality score, trying to get the best possible score for Google to get the cheapest cost per clicks. And now we're really more focused on what's going to give us the most return or most conversions from what we're trying to achieve. And then in terms of conversion tracking, previously it would have just been, let's just track phone calls, form submissions, and kind of leave it at there. And now what we've kind of progressed into is really taking that conversion data into another platform and understanding what conversions are actually leading into quotable leads and sales. And that's really like where it's kind of headed now in terms of what we're doing anyways. And so when it comes to having success in Google Ads, and for anything really, it's really implementing a holistic framework. Google Ads on its own can only take you so far, because really the whole job of Google Ads is just to get you the right traffic. And of course, there's going to be some nuanced things in there as well, but really Google Ads gets you traffic, and you want to get the right traffic. You then take that traffic to a website or a landing page, which the sole job of that page is to convert the traffic into leads. Once you've captured the leads, you want some kind of form, or what we do is create some kind of instant automation where the prospects receive an instant SMS or some kind of indication that they've received the inquiry and that they'll get back to them soon. And typically what we'll do is we'll prompt the prospect to choose a time to speak by asking a simple question in that automated SMS. And then finally on the back end is having a robust lead tracking and attribution system where we can track the lead quality and sales in the back end. So this is really, like, for us, I'd say this has been the main kind of thing that we've been focusing on over the past 2 years, because it's very easy to get lost in the conversion data inside of Google Ads, and you just see numbers because you might see a campaign, oh, we've had 100 conversions, but for a client, that doesn't mean anything. 100 conversions could be, well, who are they? And so having that lead attribution system or integrating with the right sort of CRM allows you to see, okay, out of those 100 conversions, what are the names, what are the phone calls, what has actually led to like quotable business that has resulted in sales. It's pretty simple. And this is the platform we use. It's called What Converts. If you're interested, I'll put a link in the description below. But it's really having that full clarity on leads, quotes, and sales so that we can actually understand what Google Ads is producing in terms of business outcomes for clients. And here's a quick kind of breakdown of what that holistic approach looks like. We've got Google Ads, we've got the landing page. When people convert on the landing page, that leads into an automated SMS, and then we track everything in the background. So the training focus for today is not necessarily the whole holistic strategy, but our build and strategy using Google Ads specifically for lead gen campaigns. This is what we've been using probably for the past year and now well into 2024 as well, and we're still having amazing success with it. We may touch on other aspects within this training, but it's primarily going to focus on the Google Ads side of things. So you may need to fill in the gaps, and it's really not going to be too much on the basics. It's really just going to be the fundamentals of what we do within Google Ads. And so hopefully what you'll be able to take away from this is a simple method that you can use to build and launch campaigns. It can be applied to all different types of lead gen campaigns. We've not only used it in home services, home improvement, but legal as well, professional services, and a number of other industries as well. And ultimately, what we found with this particular strategy or build, it produces results quick and it impresses clients and gets their buy-in from month one onwards, and then allows you to progress and build and improve upon with the following months. And using this as well, it also gives you that roadmap to progress campaign bidding strategies and understand where you're actually going to take the campaign, rather than just kind of launch something in the first month and not know where to take it. And what we particularly like about this strategy is that it's very easy to manage and understand the data. I think that's half the battle, is just making stuff easy to see and understand so that you can ultimately make decisions. And that's really pretty much the most important thing in terms of Google Ads management. And then finally is learning how to think. This is not a copy and paste solution. And it's not going to work just, taking it and then applying it exactly how we've got it to your campaign. It's just taking elements and using elements of this as inspiration for your own campaigns, because no single campaign is going to be exactly the same as another one. There's so many different factors. Just kind of use this training a bit like a buffet to take bits and pieces, apply it to your campaign, test it. I'm not making any bold promises that this is the best way to build a campaign. I'm just sharing what has worked for us and our clients. And so really, like, what we want to do and achieve from this is going from unpredictable stormy seas, because I know what Google Ads can be like, to easy flying and enjoying the ride. And just having like something in mind where okay, I've got this set up. I know where I want to take it. I'm getting good results. That's kind of like the goal of this, is to take an account from, something which is a bit turbulent, you're not getting results, into something that's easy, nice to manage, and you know where you're going with it. So grab a coffee, grab a tea, let's dive right in. First things first, your budget will dictate your strategy and build. And what I mean by this, and I've had this a lot of times where clients want to run so many different service campaigns, but they've only got a select amount of budget. Because what you need to understand is that if you've got a limited budget, you're going to have less campaigns, because you're going to be more efficient taking that same budget and just putting it into one and getting more data. Because again, limited budget equals less ad groups and less keywords that you can target. Limited budget equals fewer experiments and tests. So consider all these different factors and build a campaign based on the budget that you have available. And my pro tip here that you can see at the bottom is don't spread the butter too thin. Focus your budget on one campaign or one service type and get enough data to make decisions. This is hugely important and something that I really, really believe in. Here's an example of what we've done within a campaign where we actually had budget spread across two campaigns. So you can see here on the top screenshot, the first 3 weeks, 21st of March through to the 11th of April, we were running two different campaigns, had the budget split across both, and we were getting relatively mediocre results. I mean, they were still decent, but what we decided to do was pause the external wall insulation campaign, you can see there, and focus all the budget into the rendering campaign. And you can see here, with more data going into that campaign, we were able to make more adjustments, get more data, and ultimately bring that cost per lead down to £30 very quickly, rather than kind of waiting all this time with that budget spread across two. So just a bit of a contextual reference in terms of that point that I'm trying to make. Now, when it comes to research and planning, what we find to be very beneficial is planning your build first. I guarantee you it will be faster and better. And really, we use two tools to do this. We really don't go into too much detail when it goes into keyword research and planning. For most of the campaigns that we run anyway, they're pretty straightforward, like roofing, boiler repair, junk removal. It's not rocket science, but we'll use two different tools. We'll use Google Keyword Planner to get a feel of the different keywords that we can target. And then we also use the Mangles KW Finder as well. And I guess we kind of use them as both like two different resources to cross-check each other, have a look at the different search volumes, get an idea of the cost per clicks, and then just kind of compile what we find are the best keywords into a spreadsheet, which I'll show you in a moment. And typically what we do when assessing keyword search volume, because this is a question I get asked pretty often, is with keywords with 100 plus monthly searches, that's typically kind of the sweet spot of what we find. You can absolutely target stuff with less, and you often may be surprised with how much volume there actually is. But there's no one strict rule to follow on this, but we'll tend to lean to higher volume keywords with a mix of lower traffic keywords as well, just as a kind of like a rule of thumb. So when planning out your campaign and doing your keyword research, it makes a lot of sense to add your keywords to a spreadsheet while you're doing this process. And what it allows you to do is get a really clear idea of the structure of your campaigns and ad groups, and allows you to start putting these keywords into all the different ad groups. So as you can see here, we've taken some of that research and we're taking those location-based keywords, pocketing them into their own ad group. So we've got two different ad groups here. One for Fulham, so two location ad groups. We've got an intent ad group, which is your intent keywords like roofing companies, roofing contractors, roofing services, basically the keywords where people are clearly looking for a company to work with. And then a general ad group, which I'm going to go into more detail in a moment, where it's very broad, I suppose, or more general keywords like roofers, roofing, roof repairs, not necessarily with commercial intent, but something there that may be worth targeting. And here you can see is a spreadsheet which is a little bit more built out. So you can see here I've got all the different ad groups: location London, location Fulham, intent, general, cost and price, flat roof. I've got all the different keywords that we would be targeting in each one of those ad groups. And then we also start to build out our ad headlines and descriptions as well. And so this just gives you an idea of how your campaign is going to look before you kind of go into the Google Ads account and then get a bit stuck and then kind of do it on the fly. it just makes it so much easier to plan and then do it once you're in the real thing. So quick thing on match types, we use phrase match for the majority of our keywords that have some level of intent. For keywords that are more generic, we more often start with exact match. So here's a couple of good examples. The phrase match examples: roofing contractor, roofing repair London, solar panel installer, loft boarding company, all very intent-based keywords. And what we might do in terms of the more general keywords that you can see here on the right, roofing, roof repair, solar panels, loft boarding, will make those exact match. And that just gives us that added layer of security that we're not going to show up for loads of different types of products or irrelevant searches, which aren't necessarily people looking for a company. That's not to say that they wouldn't work, but we like to start anyways with exact match because it's just a bit safer. Now, let's dive into the campaign structure. There are a couple of different campaign styles that we typically do. There's a multi-location campaign structure where you can see here they're pretty much the exact same build, but what we'll do is build campaigns based on the different locations, which may make sense depending on the business. Or my personal favorite is actually putting it all under one single campaign, which is what we call like a geo. I think quite a few people do call it a geos campaign, where instead of having multiple locations, we actually will build out specific ad groups for different locations. And so it will heavily be more location ad groups within this style of campaign structure. And for me, it just makes it a little bit easier to manage. I like to see everything under one roof rather than having duplicate location campaigns, if that makes sense. And so, kind of like I was saying in the previous slide, our preference is avoiding that duplication, because you can see what happens is that if you're using multi-location campaigns, you'll have a roofing campaign for London, you'll have a loft conversion campaign for London, then you'll have this exact same thing, roofing Kent, loft conversion Kent. And so you end up having all these different campaigns. And as a manager, it becomes quite stressful to actually look at each one and really understand the data in each one. And it makes it just, I feel, a little bit too spread out. Of course, sometimes it might be unavoidable depending on the client. But for us, we tend to like to make it much easier. So in this slide here, you can see we like to put all locations for that one service under one campaign. And then here we've got all locations with this loft extension or loft conversions campaign in another one. So service 1, location A, service 2, location A. Hopefully that makes sense. It just makes it a lot easier to manage. And again, like I was saying before, sometimes you may need these multi-location structures. Often for us and our clients, they may have a business setup where they want to attract a certain volume in each location, or they've got a certain budget that they want to allocate to a certain location. But it's kind of going to be up to you on a case-by-case basis on the client and how you want to approach it. But yeah, if you have multiple services in this note here at the bottom, you may want to consider adding them as ad groups to the campaign rather than creating additional campaigns. This is an absolute maybe. It really does depend on what kind of services they are. If they're similar value, it's probably more relevant to do that. But if they're like entirely different services, different values, then it may make sense to segment them into their own campaigns with their own budgets. So hopefully that gives you some kind of advice on how you decide to structure it. And now if we dive into our most commonly used ad groups, there are 5 main ad groups that we run with. Of course, there's going to be more. It completely depends on the campaign and service. But we've got this general ad group, which is keywords related to the service, but without necessarily indicating intent. Roofer, roofing, roof repair. Hopefully that makes sense. We've got an intent ad group, and these are keywords that clearly indicate someone looking for a service: roofing company, roofing contractor, roofing services. And then we've got 2 proximity-based ad groups, which could sometimes be under one, or we separate them into 2. It does depend. So the location ad group is often a variant of the keywords that include a location. So roofer London, roof repair London, or roof replacement London. I think I got the same keyword twice in there, but just consider that a different keyword and a different location on the end. And then we've got the near me ad group, and near me is a very popular search term. And these are keywords that use proximity words such as near me or local. So you can see roofer near me, local roofer, flat roofer near me. And again, depending on your build, you may want to put this under one ad group, such as location, or potentially segment them out. It depends on the size of the area you're targeting, because it makes no sense if you're targeting a huge area, you've got a near me keyword, and then your landing page says one area, but it's, when it means near me, you've got to think, what does near me mean to that person? Because near me and 10 miles away, if I'm seeing ads for a company based 10 miles away, near me might not necessarily be near me, if that makes sense. And I want to work with a local company. So in that case, it might be trying to segment that into its own ad group so you can make it more relevant to what near me actually means to that person. Hopefully that makes sense. And then finally, we got cost and price. This is a bit more top of funnel. And these are keywords that include someone who's looking for a cost or price. Real simple. Roof repair cost, new roof price, flat roof cost. Disclaimer, you're going to get a much lower conversion rate in these cost and price ad group, but the cost per clicks are cheaper. So it's kind of finding that balance. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, here's an example of all of this in play. So you can see we've got the AM Roofing North London. AM is just Atomic Marketing, so you could use your own initials or however you want to label it. And then we've got the ad groups by cost and price, location, roof repairs, and then flat roofs as well. So you can actually create service-based ad groups as well. That's another thing that we kind of recommend. Now, when it comes to those general keywords, again, like I mentioned before, in terms of match types, we use exact match as a starting point, just so that we're not showing up for everything and anything. It just keeps it a little bit safer. And what I'm going to do now is just reveal our 2024 campaign structure that has worked for us time and time again, and with the examples of different industries and slight variation. So I know a lot of this has been a lot of theory and a lot of the different squares laid out in certain ways, but I want to show you some actual campaign data. That's typically what we're used to doing in our YouTube videos. So let me show you. So this is what we call our classic campaign structure. You can see intent, near me, locations, cost and price. I believe this is for a loft insulation company. And really, it's nothing special or complicated. And it is our starting point of structure when it comes to building campaigns. And it's served us really well since 2023 and still works really well in 2024. I think we've actually used it longer than that, but this hopefully gives you some kind of idea of the layout that we use and something that you can take on board or take elements of into your own campaigns. Here's an example of an ad group campaign or an ad group structure for a roofing campaign. So you can see here, we use primarily a lot of location-based keywords, or location keywords in location-based ad groups. That's just the kind of strategy that we've chosen for that particular company, because what you might find is if you're targeting a large area, you may get out of area leads, and really one key way to fix that is actually just by targeting the location keywords themselves. And that way it kind of pretty much guarantees that you're going to target the right people. Here's an ad group structure for a window installation campaign. So you can see here, it's got a few, sorry, this isn't windows, this is siding. So this is a siding campaign. They do siding and windows. But yeah, you can see here, we've got cost and price keywords, we've got near me, we've got the product name based keyword as well as its ad group. We've got siding replacement. It just kind of gives you an idea of the way we structure different things. And you can see it's not just the kind of 4 primary ad groups that we have. We've included some other ones as we've gone along as well. And so this is a big point as well, is actually some ad groups we may want to adapt to exact match. So you can see here from that previous screenshot, we put the -EM, and typically what we might find is that when we launch a campaign, even if the keywords within that ad group are phrase match, we might see they start pulling in the wrong type of traffic. And when we see that, we'll typically adapt all the keywords in that ad group into exact match, just so that we can refine the traffic a bit better, because if it's showing up for competitor names, then that's a quick, clear indicator that we need to make that move. And so here's a great example of that. Be cautious with intent phrase match keywords. So what you can see here, when we're targeting this window installation company keyword, you can see we're just showing up for loads of different competitors here. And you can see when you're spending like $20 a click, that's, you're going to lose a lot of money very fast. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way, and it shows you for all the right sort of stuff. But here you can see it is primarily competitor keywords that we're showing for. So just like when you target a keyword which has the word contractor or company, and just be mindful that Google is going to think of you or show your ads when people are looking for competitor names. Here's another example of the ad group structure for rendering. So you can see we've actually paused most ad groups in favor of cost and prices. We were getting some really good results in there. And this is really like some early results in a campaign that you can see, but you can see we use different location-based ad groups, and then the product itself rendering, and then cost and price as well. Here's another ad group structure for a moving company. This is using a experiment. I think this is in an experiment campaign at the moment, but you can see we've got intent, we've got location keywords, and then we've got other kind of service-based ones as well with other locations. Here's another ad group structure for carpet cleaning. So we've actually got the service of upholstery cleaning in there. We've got locations, cost and price, and intent in there as well. So hopefully it gives you some kind of idea of what we're doing and how we're structuring it. So there's always going to be important considerations when it comes down to planning your build and managing it. Every campaign is unique, and there are always going to be nuanced differences in each campaign that may determine your starting build structure. Your budget. Does it make sense setting up loads of different ad groups if you have a limited budget, or is it better just to go after one and do it really well? And then another key consideration I see quite a lot is over segmentation. And while it is really tempting to hyper segment your ad groups into different themes and make it kind of like as precise as possible, it kind of goes back to that SCAG approach. Sometimes it's best just to consolidate it, because what you might find is when you try and when you're over segmenting your ad groups, you find your ad groups and your keywords are still showing up for the same search terms anyway. So you may as well bundle it in one and make it easier to manage. So what I'm going to show you here is how a simple change in campaign structure for a roofing company actually increased lead to quote rate from 23% to 46%. And this is just by changing the structure of what we're targeting. And to give you a bit more context on this, you can see here, this was the ad group structure right here in the top right that we had before. We were using location ad group, general, intent, cost and price, and service. And using that, we were still getting a lot of leads, but we were only getting a 23% lead to quote rate. We then switched the structure to only using location-based ad groups, because what we found in that top campaign structure was that we were getting a lot of out-of-area leads. We were targeting a good portion of London, and because London's a big place, there's lots of roads that go through it, and people be traveling. People don't work in London, but don't necessarily live in London. What we were finding is that we were getting a lot of leads, but a lot of out-of-area leads. We then switched this up into only using location-based ad groups with location-based keywords, and we were able to achieve a 46% lead to quote rate. And you can see the difference here in the quote and sales values from just making that one switch in the campaign itself. Now, in order to be able to understand this data and be able to implement something like this, this is why you need that lead tracking and attribution system, because our goal isn't just to generate leads, it's to make our clients more money. And if you can do that, and you have the data to understand what leads contribute to that, then you can make the changes inside of the account. And here are our pillars for Google Ads success. Really get the right traffic as a first kind of priority. That's the whole job of Google Ads, is getting the right traffic. Make campaigns easy to manage. Get clarity in the data to be able to make decisions when optimizing your account. Budget allocation as well. So I find a lot of Google Ads success comes just down to allocating your budget correctly across different ad groups and campaigns. And looking at the whole picture, because Google Ads or the data in Google Ads is only going to tell you part of the story, but really you want to look at your landing page, your back-end leads are doing as well, so that you can actually make decisions based on understanding all the different variables involved. So I'm going to run you through now our campaign setup. If you're already pretty proficient in setting up campaigns, you could probably breeze past this bit, but let me run you through it anyway, as it'll give you a good idea of just how we do it. So we start all new lead gen campaigns as search, choose the objective as leads, We use the starting bid strategy typically for new accounts and manual CPC enhanced to launch campaigns. Note, this is not a default option, so you will need to go back and change it once you have set up your campaign. For existing accounts we manage that have existing campaigns and some data in the account, we may actually launch the campaigns already on maximized conversions with a target CPA. It really depends, but typically for newer accounts that we take on, we launch with manual CPC just to have that first level of control in the account. Language, we leave it as default English. Audience segments, we pick some observation audience to begin with that are relevant to the particular service. We select off for the broad match keyword. We find it's a little bit risky to start a new campaign on, but be curious to see if anyone is actually using that. And then for auto-created assets, we select off because we've just seen some weird stuff come up before when that has been left on. And in terms of more settings, for ad rotation, we usually launch with one single RSA, so we leave it as optimized. However, when we start adding new ads, we'll actually select that option, do not optimize, so we can better get a better split of traffic across both ads rather than it kind of favor one and it give the other ad no opportunity to get involved. And then ad schedule, we leave it as all day and then adjust later unless the client has specific working hours where it makes sense to turn the ads off if they're not going to be able to answer calls. If it's like a primarily call-based campaign, then in that case, we'll build more of a in-depth schedule for them. So in terms of the next step after you've kind of gone through that process, it's all about building your ad groups and writing your ads. Now, if you've planned this in a Google Sheet, it should already be pretty quick. And then you can pretty much just copy and paste it across the board. Or if you use Google Ads Editor, I think you can just upload it. I personally don't know how to use it, but my colleague Dale does. So he usually takes care of the builds doing that. Now, when it comes to setting your starting CPCs, we always like to take the approach that time is money. There's nothing worse than launching a campaign and getting no clicks at all, and it's because you're being overly cautious with it. So we tend to start with first page bids and lean towards bidding slightly higher, but avoid paying the top of page bids as well. Sorry, Google, we're not going to pay your highest possible prices. And then check on your clicks and impressions daily, and then make the adjustments as you see fit. But yeah, the whole premise of it is like we need to start getting in clicks fast for the customer. And now I'm going to talk you through our bidding strategy progression, which is probably the most in-depth and detailed part of this training. You can see here we've got all phases laid out, and I'm going to go into each one by one. So phase one is control costs. And this is, again, when we launch with manual CPC, we'll maximize clicks on occasion. Sometimes it'll depend what we want to do. But we like to start with manual CPC to establish a baseline level of conversions, understand how much CPCs are going to cost for the different keywords, and establish a benchmark cost per conversion. We then move into phase two, which is introducing maximized conversions bidding strategy. And to introduce this, we'll typically introduce it as a 50-50 experiment, or if the manual CPC campaign is going really well, we might actually do it as a 70-30 just to preserve the results we're currently getting so we don't see a drop off. But again, this is going to be on a case-by-case basis of what we feel is going to be right at the time. So we also may set a target CPA if the cost per conversion is high, but tend to leave it unset if we're happy with the cost per lead, how it is already. So here is an example of our bidding strategy progression. So you can see here, going from manual CPC and then going into an experiment campaign where we're using maximized conversions with a target CPA. What you can see here is really interesting. Our average CPCs tend to increase by quite a lot, actually. You can see here, our average CPC in our manual campaign is £9.31, and then you compare that to the maximized conversions campaign, that's jumped up to £14.67. But here's the really interesting thing. You can see the conversion rate has gone from 11% to 26.67%. And that's by doing nothing other than changing the bidding strategy. And you can see the difference in the cost per conversion as well. That has decreased from 79.91 to £55. Again, it's not a massive sample size. I'm showing you something that we've just taken a screenshot of recently, but And that's not to say this is going to happen with every single campaign as well, but this is like the process of how you want to transition from manual CPC into a maximized conversions bidding strategy, and how you can do it in a safe way that allows you to test and really evaluate the difference of performance. And another thing to note, actually, and what we're finding across our campaigns, may be the same with yours, is that our manual CPC campaigns over time, what we're seeing is that our average cost per clicks are actually steadily going up. And what I mean by that as well, it's not like we've capped the CPCs, like we've had to increase the CPCs to be able to get the same traffic that we were before. And what we're finding, and this is from data from a roofing campaign, is that our cost per clicks are going up and our cost per conversions are going up along with that. Whereas when you compare that to maximize conversions with a target CPA, or even left unchecked with a target CPA, what we're finding is we're able to actually get a lower cost per conversion over time, and our average CPCs probably stay a bit more stable than in the manual side of things. So just a kind of a bit of reference point. Again, this isn't for every campaign, but what we're seeing in a large majority of the campaigns that we manage. Here's another example. So you can see a manual CPC for a Packers and Movers campaign. You can see over from July 2023 through to April 24, we've had a cost per conversion has steadily gone up and up and up. And then in that same campaign style, you can see we had that experiment running for maximize conversions with the target CPA. Our cost per lead has actually come down pretty significantly over this time period. So that's just kind of what we're seeing in terms of performance when comparing the two different bidding strategies. So our mindset really now is get out of manual CPC as soon as you can, so that you can start getting the better results from a maximized conversions, give it the data it needs, and let it start like working its magic for you. And then phase 3. So once you have established that the maximized conversions experiment is beating your original manual CPC, you want to end and apply the experiment, making the maximized conversions the clear winner. And that's now becomes the base campaign. And what you want to do from here is that we may then start to introduce the target CPA to establish a balance between the lead volume and cost per lead. And so this is what you find sometimes if you leave the target CPA left unchecked, you might see that cost per lead, cost per click graphs go up and up and up. So it's not always the case, but over a 7-month period, that's kind of what I've seen. So you may want to start introducing a target in there just to kind of like create that new normal balance in that campaign. Then from phase 4, which we call Let's Go Broad, this is where we've got the maximize conversions target CPA base campaign. And then we launch a broad match. We launch an experiment with that same campaign, but using broad match keywords. Again, we do this in a 50-50 traffic split, or can be a 70-30, depending on your, risk level. But what you want to do when you create this experiment campaign is potentially pause any threat keywords that you don't want to include. And so these will typically be your more generic keywords that are likely to attract a lot of junk search terms if they're left as broad match keywords. So what we may do in the experiment campaign is just pause out the keywords which we feel are going to be a little bit too much risk. And so that way now you've got your base maximized conversions with the target CPA campaign, and then you've got the experiment version of that, which is using broad match keywords. And this is now like kind of really adopting what Google wants you to do. And what we found is actually very, very good results from doing this. So you can see here, this is a carpet cleaning campaign that we run using a broad match. So you can see the experiment. This has actually got a lot of different campaigns in it. So hopefully you'll understand this and this will be clear, but you can see this is our broad match keywords variant of the base campaign, which is at target CPA. We're actually getting a really good return from it. So you can see here, spend 2,235 for a conversion value return of £9,070. Compare that with the base, which is the one below. It's getting a better return. Again, this is just one single example. It's not the case that this is going to happen for every single one, but that's kind of the process of what we want to experiment with and see if we're able to get more volume using broad match keywords and what our return is like. Does it bring us cheaper traffic as well? I can see here, actually, even comparing from a lot of the different campaign types that we're running, the one where we're using broad match keyword is actually producing a much better return, and the cost per clicks are actually pretty much the same across the board. So not too much difference there, but just worth testing with what you can do with broad match keywords, because Google says broad match keywords in combination with a automated bidding strategy can be a pretty powerful, potent combination. It looks at more signals of the user to hopefully find you the most relevant people who are most likely to convert. That's what they say anyway. And then finally, in phase 5, we have play with PMax. And this isn't necessarily a bidding strategy, but just something that we include is launch a Performance Max campaign to run alongside other campaigns as well. And to do that, you can see here, this is one that we've launched in that same carpet cleaning campaign. We're not getting an amazing return from there, but it does produce some decent volume, and it's interesting to see what it can do. And my experience with Performance Max so far in lead gen hasn't been amazing, but what I'm seeing more recently is that it is starting to improve. And for a few campaigns that we're running it for, it is actually working better than our standard campaigns. And these are typically what we do is if we have certain campaigns which may be limited by demand or limited by geographical area, we'll launch a Performance Max campaign, and it surprisingly does very, very well. And often will beat the cost per lead that we're getting in our standard campaigns. Now, it is important to note and to understand what kind of quality of leads you're getting from Performance Max. So hence why you need that lead tracking attribution system, so you can see, okay, what is the quality difference between our standard campaigns and our Performance Max campaigns. But that's kind of like what we do towards the end of it. But you may introduce play with Performance Max somewhere in the middle of your journey as well. It doesn't have to be at the end necessarily, but what I'd say is that if you're able to get great results without Performance Max, then kind of put your budget into what's working now, rather than just throwing Performance Max in there for the sake of it. So hopefully that makes sense. Really, in conclusion to all of this, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I love this quote by Mike Tyson, and it basically for me and how this works for our Google Ads strategy is that you may have all these ideas of what you want to do, how you want to progress a campaign, but until you're actually in there and seeing the data, your plan's going to change, and you may have the best idea of wanting to switch from a certain bidding strategy into another one, but maybe you can run manual CPC for a year or not make too many optimizations, and it works great. And the main conclusion from this is just kind of see what the data is saying and adapt based on that. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in working with us, you can do it in a number of different ways. We do full client Google Ads management, landing page design, consulting, and you can see this new orange bar here. We've got a new private community that we are launching, which I'm super excited about, which you probably have seen a video somewhere in the middle of this video, which explains a bit more information about it. But you'll find a link in the description below, which will share more information about each one of these, especially the private community where we'll be doing one-to-one coaching, or group coaching rather, where you can bring your Google Ads campaigns, the landing pages, and we'll basically be doing live audits. And so it's basically like one-to-one consulting, but in a group format, where we'll ultimately find the best route to success for your campaigns. You can check us out and our agency out at atomicmarketing.com. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd hugely appreciate you giving it a thumbs up and subscribing if you want more details or more videos just like this one. All right. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. Have a good one and see you in the next video. Take care.